OMGs, boys, girls, in between us. Welcome, Red Gamer here with a tutorial for how to play Jury. I've been promising this for a while, so I'm finally making go on that. Now, quick disclaimer for those of you who do not know me. This is a tutorial designed for people who are beginner to intermediate-ish kind of level. If you're a good high-level player who's like, you know, ultra silver or above, you really don't need this. You can figure most of the stuff out by yourself. You don't need a guide. You've gone through it all yourself already. So this is just really to show people how Jury works, what our good buttons are, what combos are there, things like that. Now this is part one, so I wanted to break it down into two parts just because there is a lot of ground to cover and I didn't want to do one giant video all at once. So this is going to cover basically all her normals, all her specials, how the properties of them work, what's good, what's bad, all that kind of thing. And also this is for season 2 as well, so obviously this is all new information here as well, so there's nothing that's outdated or anything like that, so you don't need to worry about that. That's it, and the last thing to cover is this costume here, this fantastic piece of swag.
Why don't you get serious already?
I get asked about this stuff a lot. This is a mod. You can't get, if you're running on PS4, you cannot get this. I'm sorry. It's just PC Master Race only, I'm afraid. Alright, so that's it. Let's get down to the brass tacks. Now, Jury as a character, she is... Initially, I thought when I first picked her up a few months back, I thought that she was kind of a rushdown character with her feng shui engine and whatnot. She's not. She's really quite similar to what her playstyle was, even though a lot of her moves have changed. She doesn't have the specials that she used to. Her playstyle isn't really all that different. She's a character who's designed for spacing, for the neutral game, and to take tools away from her opponent. So that's really the main focus of how she works, is that you want to try and just frustrate people, get them to do silly things because you've taken away the normal ways in which they can attack you. Alright, now that's covered that's out of the way. We can go into a lot more detail on that later, probably in the second video. I just want to keep things moving along. So let's talk about normals. I'm going to do a quick rundown on normals. Now, before I do that, if you aren't familiar with frame data, I'm not going to shout numbers at you or anything like that, or at least try not to, but there's important things to remember. The game runs at 60 frames per second. If a move is -3 on block, which means you take 3 frames more to recover than your opponent does, that means the move is unsafe. If the move is -2 or less, that means it is safe, but you can't press a button afterwards. If the move is 0, that means you both have an equal amount of advantage on block, and if the move is plus on block, that means that you have the advantage on block. Okay, so just keep those things in mind. But those are just general rules from when I'm giving out some numbers here and whatnot for people who do know what the frame information is. Alright, let's get into this. So, staying light punch. Very fast. Not a good range. Have to be very close to be able to hit them. Not in their face, but pretty damn close, and even then, the pushback will knock them away, so you can't really follow up with much. You're gonna get 2 at the most. So it's very fast, very safe, but just not that great a move. You won't find yourself using it very much. Alright, staying medium punch. Better move. Not quite as fast as starting up, but it has good range. It's got some good combo potential. It's just a good move overall. The only real problem with it is the pushback again. You can't get 2 in a row without walking forward between. So there's a little walk in there if you watch. Well, I do that to get 2. If I just do 2 straight away, it doesn't combo. So that's the thing to keep in mind with staying medium punch. Alright, staying heavy punch. It's a kick, but it's a punch. It's not a kick, but it's a punch. Good range. It's one of the better range normals, absolutely. Good damage, slightly punishable. I believe it's -4. So because of the range, they're gonna have a hard time punching it. If you do it from max range, they will have a difficult time punching that. Not impossible, but just difficult. Alright, staying light kick. Good normal. It's a little bit better than staying light punch in my opinion. You get a little bit better range out of it. You can kind of hit it from over here. You can't do that with staying light punch. You have to get much closer for that. So it's kind of my preferred light normal if I'm going to be using that. It is cancelable. It's good all around. It's also plus on block, so you got a few advantages there. Kind of more of a go-to than staying light punch. Alright, staying medium kick. Godlike. Absolutely godlike. In Season 2, this is Jury's go-to poke if you're in footsies. It is just very good startup, around 5 frames to startup. Great range, absolutely fantastic range. Can be special cancelled, has good link potential with staying medium punch, which we'll get to later. It's just this is your go-to poke. If you don't know what button to press in footsies, this is the one you want to go to. It will beat a lot of things. And just look how fast that is. Look at the range. It's just really good. Now, standing heavy kick. Alright, probably her best range poke, because it actually carries her forward. It's also a crush counter as well. But the problem with this is that it is also unsafe on block. So when you want to use this, you can definitely use this in footsies, but you want to be very careful about the range you use it at. If you use it back here, you should be fine. There should be really no way they can punish you from all the way back here. But if you're doing it from up here, you can get ready for a world of hurt on block, because you can get very big punishes off that if you're up too close. So just be wary about how you use this in spacing. Alright, crouching normals. Light punch. Really not much reason to be using this at all. It's a pretty useless normal. It's slower than a crouching light kick, which we'll get into in a second. It's just, yeah, it's just not really good for anything at all. Alright, crouching medium punch. Decent range, has slightly more range than a crouching medium kick, but really the only time I'm going to be using this is in combos, because they did buff her crouching medium kick in Season 2. So this lost a bit of utility when Season 2 came around. Not because it's bad, just because other moves got made better. Crouching heavy punch. Alright, interesting the fact that this has virtually no forward hitbox. It's really only a vertical hitbox. Like, I'm right in front of Ken. Finally hit him. You right up in his grill. It is also quite unsafe, but you can cancel it. So you can make it safe by canceling it with something else. You can definitely use it in combos, but it's very spacing dependent, so you have to be quite careful which combos you use in. Not a bad move, just not a great move. Alright, let's move to the kick. So crouching light kick. Faster than crouching light punch, has a better range. Really just, if you're going to be using a light poke, this is the one you want to use. No reason to use crouching light punch over this one. Alright, crouching medium kick. Alright, not quite as far as crouching medium punch, but still a very good move. Has good advantage, it is safe. So, cancelable. It's really more kind of the move you'll throw out in footsies, as opposed to crouching medium punch if you want to go that kind of route. And you can use some dash up moves with it, which we'll cover in the second video. So, it's definitely been improved in Season 2. Not great, it doesn't have half the range that it did in Street Fighter 4, but it's still good. Alright, crouching heavy kick. It's a sweep. If you play Street Fighter 5 at all, you know that sweeps are both crush counters and unsafe for every character. So you really only want to throw this out when you are absolutely positive that you're going to hit with it. That said, it has good range. It's one of the better range sweeps in Street Fighter 5. It's not the longest sweep by far. I think that's Corinne. Jumping normals. Jumping light punch. There's no reason to use this, ever. I've never used this for anything in my entire life, and I don't plan to. Alright, jumping medium punch is a decent, it's pretty good. It's a pretty good air to air. I don't think it's quite as good as it was in 4, but it has the same properties. So if we go and make our friend Ken here do some jumping, it will actually cause float state afterwards. So float state being that you can follow up afterwards. So that's the main reason you want to use that. It is quite good. It will beat a lot of things in the air. That said, I found that there are certain characters who it will not beat in the air. It will get flat beaten by Ryu's jumping medium punch, by Bison's jumping heavy punch, and by Laura's jumping heavy kick. Those are 3 characters who have just had normals that just flat beat it every time. So just be wary when you're going up against those characters if you want to try and throw it out there. Alright, jumping heavy punch. Not really any reason to ever use this. It's okay. Just no, there are better air normals, which we'll get into in a second. So again, it's like light punch. Just no reason to ever really use it. Alright, jumping light kick. This is actually quite a decent reactionary air to air. So if you're jumping and your opponent jumps at the same time and you weren't expecting it, you can throw this out and it'll win a lot of the time. So it's kind of good for that most of the time. If you're trying to meet them air to air, obviously you want to use the jump medium punch instead. The other reason that it's good though is that it also is cross up. So can be used in combos, can be used for tick throw setups, so yeah, tick throw setups like that. That's really the primary use for it. It's not her best cross up though, because we'll get into that right now, which is her jumping medium kick. So it has a good range, pretty decent, but it is also a cross up. And the best part is it's also a very ambiguous cross up. If you space it right, especially after a forward throw, at this range here, it's quite ambiguous as to which way it's going to go. It will always go back after a forward throw, but it can be quite tricky, especially if you use it in the corner. People will get hit by it a lot because they think it's going to hit in front and it always hits behind if you use it when they're in the corner. So, good trick to use. It's definitely her better cross-up out of the 2, and just a good move overall. And jumping heavy kick. This is your primary jump-in tool, essentially, but it aims down, has a good range. And it'll start off, it's the part you start off most of your combos when you jump in. Alright, let's look at her special normal. She has 2 special normals. One is her Seku, which is her overhead. Now, this is not as fast as it looks. It has 22 frames of startup, which is a lot in case you aren't paying attention. So, and the problem with that is that even though it appears that she is airborne from the first frame, she is not. She is actually grounded up until the 16th frame of startup from this. So she can actually be thrown up to frame 16 from this. So, and it only has 22 frames of startup, so there's a good time during startup that she is completely throwable. So, add that on top of the fact that it is also unsafe on block, it's -6 on block. It's not great. Alright, the other one is a back heavy kick, which is this bad boy that we just saw before. So, this is good for a few reasons. The first one is that while it is a slow startup, it actually has 2 hits, which makes it very confirmable, and you can actually cancel off both hits if you want to. So it is a really good tool for hit confirming. I find myself using it a lot. Probably more than I should, really, to be perfectly honest. Just because it is so good in the sense that it has those 2 hits, and also it's safe on block. It's -2 on block, meaning that you can't follow up afterward, but it can't be punished either. So it's very good just for that stuff. Yeah, that's not the second hit. That's not the first hit. So really, really good button. If you like just want to throw out a move, yeah, it's great for combos. It's great for hit confirms. Really, just fantastic button all around, I feel. All right, let's look at Juri's air throw. So Juri actually gained an air throw on Street Fighter 5, which is not a bad tool. So you execute this just by jumping in the air and pressing throw. Pretty simple stuff. So, a couple things to know about this throw is that it is actually it's a pretty decent option if you're using it as a reactionary kind of thing. So if people jump in the air, they do it very close range, you can just really just jump up, throw that out. It actually has its hitbox extended in Season 2, so she can throw it from a little bit further away. It's quite a good option for that sort of thing. It'll beat out if you're running up against Cammy, if you can jump up and try and meet her in the edge before she can do a dive kick, things like that. Akuma's Demon Flip, you can grab them straight out of that. So it's a good option for certain kind of air-to-air setups. That said, is that it does not have priority over attacks, unfortunately, which is something which I feel like it really should have, or I would like it to have at least. So the aforementioned Ryu attacks, the Bison attacks, Laura, those will also all flat beat her throw as well. So again, good but not great. It's really kind of situational tool that you want to use. It's kind of a toss-up most of the time between using air throw or using jumping medium punch, depending on the situation. Alright, let's look at her V-skill. Now her V-skill has 2 separate levels. One is a basic V-skill when you just tap medium punch, medium kick, which is this. It's a neat little fly towards, go behind, whack him in the back kind of thing. Now, the thing to remember about this is that it will always cross up. It's not like Cammy's where it's range dependent. Doesn't matter whether you do it from that far away, it doesn't matter whether you do it right next to him. It will always cross up. So there's not really, it's not as unpredictable as Cammy's is. Also, it's very unsafe on block. Hugely unsafe on block, actually. So again, this is kind of the tool that you want to use to get that last hit in a round. It is cancelable from other moves, so you can do, say, back heavy kick into it. So if they're blocking the back heavy kick, you can throw that out and try to catch them on the backside, which does work more than you'd think, but it's still, in terms of taking risks, the risk reward is kind of, it's not really good. It's kind of, I would say it's kind of a high risk, medium reward kind of dealie. Again, really only good for trying to get that last hit, as I said. I use it a lot to get that last hit in a round. And again, especially if you use it more than once, people will catch on very fast. So you want to be very sparing in how you use it. Especially when, in Season 2, the charged version got buffed dramatically, and we'll get into that right now. So the charged version is when you hold the button down. Now if you watch Juri very closely, watch under her feet. You'll see after about half a second a puff of smoke appear. That puff of smoke indicates that you've hit level 2. It's kind of hard to see, you have to watch for it quite closely, but it happens around the half-second mark. So what happens is when you do that, the level 2, she now has access to doing her move from full screen. And it hits twice. So normally, it won't go full screen. But if you do it charged up, it will actually go full screen. Now, as you've seen here, you can dash cancel the charge and keep the charge, which is very helpful. You can just let it rock, which is a bad idea because it takes too long to charge. Or you can charge it up and save it, which is what you really want to do. Now it's saved, I can throw it out. So she now has access to this move, so it will always hit in front and always hit behind, and it will always go full screen. Or actually at any distance. You can do it point blank as well, it doesn't matter. It'll cancel off other moves, which I'll get into in the second video. It'll cancel off specials now, which is also good but not great in my opinion, but like I said, we'll get into that later on. The main reason that, to my mind, that you really want to use this is that in Season 1, this move was okay, because it took longer to charge. They reduced the charge time on it in Season 2, and it had projectile invincibility, but the projectile invincibility only kicked in after about 12 frames, which meant that basically anywhere, if you did it at full screen against projectile, anywhere between here and about here, you could get hit out of it. You basically have to do it at full screen and do it quite fast to be able to beat the projectile out. In Season 2, they've added a lot of projectile invincibility to it, so we'll now go through projectiles at any distance, aside from absolute point blank, which I'll show you right now. Alright, we got a buddy Ken here throwing fireballs. He's spitting hot fire. Let's charge up. Boom, straight through fireball. And I can do it very late. Still goes through it. I can do it from point blank range. Up to too soon. Really, at any distance this will work. Doesn't matter where you do it from. The only time it will not work is if I wait to the absolute last second like that. See, it's getting knocked out of it there. That's the only time that it won't work. Anything other than when the fireball is directly on top of Juri, she'll be able to pass right through it and punish them for it, because every character in this game, with the possible exception of Guile, has a lot of recovery on their fireballs. Now, some characters, if you wait too long, if you're at full screen, you wait till the fireball's about 2/3 screen and do it, they will have recovered. But if provided you're not at full screen, and provided your reflexes are even halfway decent, you'll be able to hit that fireball punish and basically make them terrified to throw fireballs, which is what I really like about Juri in Season 2. She has a lot of anti-fireball tools, but they weren't that great in Season 1. None of them were really just good in Season 1, and now in Season 2, this, to my mind, is the best anti-fireball tool. So that's something that's really, like, you absolutely should be, at all times, keeping a store handy if you're up against a fireball character, because you want to make them very afraid to throw a fireball. And the best part is, after a knockdown, knocks them so far away, you can just get another charge straight away. Alright, her V trigger, which is a feng shui engine, I'll get into in the second video because it's really a combo tool. Basically, what you need to know about it is, if you don't know what a feng shui engine does, is that it will basically allow her to do a lot of things, but for the most part it allows her to cancel normals into combos without really any timing whatsoever. You can just mash it out as fast as you want, and it'll become a combo. So, boom, 6-hit combo. That's really the bread and butter of the feng shui engine. There's a lot of other properties to it, but I really want to cover that in the second video because there's just so much to cover and there's still a lot to get through in this video. So let's move along. Let's talk about Juri specials. Alright, Juri special. Now, Juri has fireball stores in this game, and they're very different to how they were in Street Fighter 4. I've covered this in another video, so I won't go into too much of the differences, but just keep in mind that the stores appear down the bottom. You can't store more than one fireball of the same type at the same time, which kind of sucks. And also, as I said, they appear down the bottom, so your opponent knows what fireballs you have stored, which kind of removes a little bit of the mystery, which I hate them for. And you don't need to hold down buttons anymore either, which I also hate them for. But that aside, let's talk about the fireballs. So, Light 1 throws out a small fireball that just travels very shortly along the ground and disappears. Medium 1 looks like an overhead, but is not. And Heavy 1 basically travels forward, does 2 hits, and does the most damage. So those are your 3 fireball types. Now, when you do this fireball stores, the interesting property of the fireball store is that it has its own projectile hitbox. This is actually a projectile hitbox when you store a fireball. So you can use it to negate projectiles. I don't find myself using this too often, especially with Season 2, now working the way that it does with the V skill, but it's just interesting to know that it does have projectile hitbox on that particular move. Another thing to note is that her projectile stores also act as an attack unto themselves. Now, this is interesting for 2 reasons. The first one I really just mentioned is that it is attack on itself. The second one, however, is that it is also safe on block as well. It's -2, so again, you can do it on block, so you can hit confirm into it. If you're doing a block string and you want to end the block string safely, you can throw out a fireball store at the end of it to get yourself a fireball and make yourself safe. But it is -2, which means you can't follow up afterwards. You have sacrifice pressure to get your fireball store. So those are just how those work. Again, I'll go into like more detail. Really, the only other thing that you need to know is they can cancel into each other. Like so. And you can really do that in any order. Some ways they'll work, some ways they won't. But you can cancel them into each other, which makes for interesting possibilities. in the sense that this fireball is safe on block. It's -2. So a lot of Juri specials, in fact pretty much all of them, if they are safe, are -2. She has no specials that are 0 on block or plus on block, which allow you to follow them afterwards. So you just sacrifice pressure to make yourself safe. Now this move, the heavy fireball, is unsafe. So if you throw that out on block, it's going to be unsafe, you can be punished for it. However, because you can cancel one fireball into another, you can throw it out on block and make it safe. So now the fireball moves is safe, instead of being unsafe, which is it's a good use of the fireball if you want to just throw it out in footsies and see if it connects, but because charging is such a pain in the ass in this game, it's also not fantastic either. Last thing to mention about her fireballs is that her EX fireball always comes out the same. It always comes out as this. So it doesn't matter what combination of buttons you use, you'll always get the same attack, which is that 4-hit move. Now, the interesting properties about that move that you should know is that it does have a projectile hitbox on it, so it will try and cancel out other projectiles as it goes, and it is also safe as well. Again, -2 on block, so you are safe, but you can't follow it up. Alright, let's talk about Juri's DPs, her Dragon Punches, her little kind of pinwheel kicks, I guess, but not really. I just call them DPs because that's what they really are. It's been moved from light kick to light punch in Season 2. If you're confused about that, it's really because there was a lot of input overlap in Season 1 when you're trying to store fireballs and move around. If you're trying to move back and forth and store a fireball, more often than not, you'll get a Dragon Punch by accident, which is obviously bad news bears because they are crush counterable. So Capcom made the wise decision to move it to punches instead of kicks since the punches weren't doing anything special moves. So light kick DP is this bad boy, 2 hits, 80 damage, not great, but it's a good footsie spacing tool. You can use it in combos like I showed you before off the jumping medium punch. It's good for setups after throws, which I'll cover in Season 2, but for the most part, you can just really throw it in footsies, and it's a decent footsie spacing tool. It's -3 on block, so it is slightly punishable, but provided you aren't doing it at point-blank range, which will let you up here, if you do it back here, they're going to have a hard time trying to punch you with anything in 3 frames. So, pretty good move. I do like it. For what it is, I do like it. Her medium kick Dragon Punch is this bad boy. Now, this move is a decent anti-air, which I'll get into a little bit later, but for the most part, it's really just, the move that has the most invincibility on it now. Because Dragon Punches have all been basically unified across the board, so they're all the same in terms of properties, Juri's DP actually got buffed because this did not have, it only had upper body invincibility on it in Season 1, but now it has full invincibility on it from frame 3. So it's the same as any other Dragon Punch basically, is that it has invincibility, but you have to wait 3 frames to get it. So it's really only useful as an anti-air now, which again, we'll cover later. Heavy Punch DP travels a little bit further upwards instead of forwards. It's not hit invincible, it's only throw invincible. So really, because it does the most damage, the only time you're going to be using this is in combos. But good for combos because it does good damage, so can't fault it there. And lastly, the EX version is pretty much the same as most other Dragon Punches in that by spending bar, you will gain access to having full invincibility during startup. You get the most damage, does a little knockdown at the end of it. Alright, last special move that Juri has access to is, it's the Roidan Satsu, but I just call it the wheel kick because that's just easier to remember. So it's this bad boy here. So this bad boy in Season 1 was kind of our primary anti-fireball tool. Switch off a bit here. So this would go over fireballs. It still does, obviously. But again, it's just, to my mind, it pales in comparison to the V-skill. The only time you really use this is if you didn't have a V-skill charge. Now, as you just saw, it's not fireball invincible, it just goes over fireballs. So you have to be very careful about the timing that you use for it. So again, not a whole lot of use for it, very hard to use in a lot of situations. It's just really been outclassed by that V-skill in terms of anti-fireball tech. But it does still have uses because it does cause float, which I'll get into in the second video because it is useful for setups, especially a super setup. But that's really the only time you'll use it is in combos now. It has very little utility for anti-fireball unless you don't have your V-skill charged. That said, the EX version of this move will travel further than any other version. Now, light kick version goes a short distance, medium kick goes further, heavy kick goes furthest. It's also sliding scale in terms of startup. The heavy kick is also the slowest. But the EX will go pretty much as far as the heavy kick version, and it is also completely projectile invincible. So if Ken does his fireball, and we do the EX version, if I press the right button, it doesn't matter. I can do it super duper late. and still go through it. So that is one advantage of it. The other advantage of it is that this causes juggle. So you can get a follow-up afterwards if you're fast enough. And the heat of the moment can be a little bit different, or difficult rather I should say, if your reflexes aren't that great or you're just caught up on other things. But it's also safe. It is -2 like every other special move that she has. It's safe. So you can throw it out with Wild Abandon, it'll go through fireballs, it causes juggle, and it's safe if they do actually manage to block it. It's also victory cancelable, which is good if you want to give yourself a little bit more reaction time. So it's a good tool for getting in and activating V-Trigger, which again I will cover in the second video. Alright, last thing to cover is Juri's Critical Art, which is kind of underwhelming. Really in terms of the animation, damage is decent, but the animation is just not really much fun at all. Just a big old fireball. Kind of a bummer. Now, the thing to remember about this super is that if you're the kind of person who just throws these things out randomly, that's A, a terrible idea, and B, it's not very good for that, because it has quite a bit of startup on it with how it looks. Basically people, unless you're doing it at absolute point-blank range, people can jump over it on reaction, which is really shitty if you're trying to get that last hit on the round, which I've discovered far too many times. So it's very bad for just throwing out randomly. It's really only should be used in combos, and that's basically it. So it's, as I said, it does good damage. As you saw there, it does 330 damage, so pretty standard for a super, but yeah, just not a great super compared to some of the other ones in the game. Alright, target combo. Juri has 2 target combos. The first one is her grounded target combo, which is performed by either pressing forward or back, medium punch, heavy punch, which is this, where she actually swears at them and tells them to piss off. This looks great, because it causes juggle. So you can follow on afterwards. You think to yourself, my god, that's great. It's stupidly easy to perform, has good range, and you can cancel off the end of it. What's not to like about this move? A couple of things. First thing is that it actually whiffs on crouching opponents, which to my mind removes 99% of its utility, because it instantly becomes something that you can't just throw out for season cancel to make it safe. So that's really my main problem with it, is that you have to hit confirm into this target combo. But it's very bad. Really the only time you use this is off a crush counter, because you know they're going to be standing after a crush counter. So that's the main problem with it there. The other problem that it has is that it's also very unsafe on block. It's -12 on block, but as I said, you can cancel it, so you kind of remove that unsafeness, because you can just cancel into a fireball storm and it'll be alright. But yeah, just that crouching, it's just removes, like I said, a lot of utility from it, so I don't particularly like it. Juri actually has a second target combo, which is also bad, which is jumping. So in the air, you got that in the air. So it's jumping medium punch, then followed up by a heavy kick. I have yet to find a practical use for this target combo at all. Because it starts with jumping medium punch, you know exactly what its property is going to be. It just cancels into a heavy kick afterwards. It's just not very good. If you're going to meet them in the air, you probably either want to do an air throw, or you want to do the jumping medium punch into the light DP afterwards. To use that, really, as I said, it really has no use that I could see aside from corner carry. If you're desperate to get them in the corner, you can use that jumping in the air to knock them into the corner. So that's an option there, but I just don't like it, period. Let's talk about anti-airs, and Juri's got access to a few different anti-airs, as you can see with our buddy Ken here doing a jumping heavy kick. Now Juri can use her DP, her regular one, as an anti-air. However, because of the way the invincibility has changed, depending on the timing and the attack that you're using, you can wind up in trade situations. So, as you can see there, we got a trade, which is not quite good. That's the medium punch. I did it a little bit earlier there, we got the anti-air. So it's kind of a little bit of a crapshoot. I don't particularly like this as an anti-air tool, just because of the way that they have changed the invincibility on it. As you see, got clean beaten now. Can use the heavy punch version as well. Seems to be a little bit more consistent, which is weird considering the way that the invulnerability has changed. But either or, I'm not particularly a huge fan of using DPs as anti-airs for Juri. Obviously you can use the EX as well, which is consistent every time because it's fully invincible. But yeah, so use your discretion, practice with it a bit, see how much you like it, but I'm not a huge fan, and that's because she actually has access to a couple of other moves which will anti-air. One of them is a crouching heavy punch. Now this move is good, but it has a fair bit of startup. So again, it's kind of reactionary because as you just saw just there, it is prone to trading if you do it a little bit too late. But it's quite a decent anti-air. Just, you can get a crush counter off of it if you're lucky. Which we don't seem to be getting here, but trust me, you can get one off of it. But yeah, it's not her best anti-air. Her best anti-air from my mind is her standing heavy punch. This bad boy is very consistent. It will beat out just about anything. There are a couple of characters, Alex is one of them, who turns his entire body flat when he does a jumping heavy kick, which is a little bit problematic for this move. But for 9 out of 10 characters, this move, as you can see, it's just tremendously consistent. Alright guys, that pretty much covers off all I wanted to do in part 1. As I said, there's still a lot to get through. I want to get through some basic strategies, some gameplay tips, as well as some combos that are practical that you can use, setups, things like that. So if you do have something that you would like to see in part 2, please leave a comment below. Otherwise, thumbs up, like, subscribe if you haven't already. Do all those things. It's very much appreciated, I can assure you. And I'll be back with part 2 very soon.